It's time to think differently about creating content. Publishers and broadcasters know that you have to pre-produce your content so that it's ready when it's needed. When the customer hits your website, they see content that's relevant. When your marketing automation must deliver automated behavior-based nurturing campaigns, the content is available. When your salespeople or a partner want to prepare for a call and send content ahead of or immediately following a meeting, the content is available. When your sales or sales support people are conducting web meetings, they don't have to take a long time to prepare it. Frontline people and reseller partners want to reach into a library of modular, pre-produced content that can be easily reused, reassembled, and then delivered. So how do you create content like a publisher? We'd like to suggest you implement a structured content publishing program. This is a formal program supported by a defined and documented process and content frameworks. We talk extensively about these elsewhere. The objective is to shift from random acts of point production content to a planned and programmatic approach. This approach builds highly modular, reusable content for multiple purposes and in multiple formats. The program is continuous and can easily be ramped up for bigger projects such as product launches, events, or special campaigns. Publishers separate the different activities that take place in the creation process. Content frameworks are quite literally the blueprint for creating content. This enables a team to leverage every project to create content for multiple purposes as well as multiple formats. As we plan each project, the frameworks help us prioritize the content we need. It identifies the messages we're going to use. It also reveals message and content gaps. Because this is work in a very dynamic environment, frameworks make it a lot easier to monitor over time those things that are changing. As people build out content, one of the key elements and major time delays is what to say and how to say it, what terms to use, what themes to underscore. Frameworks minimize these problems, delays, quality impacts, and costs. Jim Burns, CEO of Avatage.
Let's turn our attention to the framework, starting with the ideal customer profile. And here we're just going to talk about a couple of elements. Each one of these sections in this framework overview is represented by a specific document. So identifying the key problems and underlying causes, you might have a whole document around that. Developing people maps or personas, you're going to have documents for each persona. You want to make sure that you go and you get that done. The frameworks that we're going to show you in a minute will organize this in a more useful way, but you have to have the source work done. The buying process. Who doesn't tell you, start by mapping out the buying process from the customer's perspective, getting clear about not only the stages, but the questions that customers need to answer in order to buy your products or services. One of the things I ask in the blog post, what is the job of content today? It is, in my view, to answer the customer's questions to accelerate them through their buying process. The value model. The other role of content is to help explain your value in the context of the customer. So you really need to be clear about what your model is, and your value is in the context of your competitors. It's your buyer's alternatives, starting with do nothing, do it with internal resources, do it with the resources, the vendors that we already have. So you really need to understand the different options your buyers have so that you can put the right messaging together and build out the right content. For those of you selling complex products or what some call divergent products, that is to say the customer's not used to buying those products, don't assume that they understand their own buying criteria and their own buying process. So the role of your content might be to educate them about how to buy your products or services, who should be involved, what the criteria should be. The sales perspective is he who controls the buying criteria controls the deal. You have a great role to play in helping to do that. The content is going to deliver your messages. So you need to build out key message maps, your key issues and themes. You want to look at how you're going to align those by the roles in industry. What are those key customer proof points? And here you can start to develop storylines, which make it easier to assemble the messages and assemble the content you will be acquiring and develop quicker.
So let's look at an example. Most people produce webinars on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, and this is a good example of what we call a point production. For many years, we've actually leveraged webinars for ourselves and for many of our customers. By applying this mentality of thinking like a publisher, we first use it as an opportunity to acquire as much content as we can from the subject experts and the customers and others that are participants to the webinar. So while we might be acquiring the content for the 30-minute webinar, we acquire as much content as we possibly can from those experts. We then edit it and make it very modular. We transcribe it. We end up with audio formats. We outline it so that we end up with a library of source content. To that, we then begin to build out graphics. We develop abstracts. We start to align it to our keywords. We'll take those transcripts and some of the frameworks and turn it into articles. We'll build out little multimedia vignettes. We manage that as modules and get the various related documents pulled together, organizing it by our themes, our value points, our proof points, and organizing it by the customer questions that our lead nurturing content has to address. And then we look at all the different ways that we can deliver both the webinar itself and the content that we've acquired. So while we deliver the webinar, as we have for this web briefing, we prepare a microsite with extended information. We develop vignettes off the back end of it. The content gives us blogs and articles and podcasts, and even turns up into sales support content. Over time, it can build out content for white papers and ebooks, and often segments of our webinars, segments are posted on YouTube or tweeted. This is a good example of turning a point production into a much broader use by thinking like a publisher.